Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our free June 2025 webinar, Pricing Lessons for Bookkeepers from Panic to Profit. I'm so glad to be here with you today. I love doing these webinars with you, bringing you all of the lessons that I have learned and important things that you need to know about so that you don't have to struggle like I did 15 years ago when I started my bookkeeping business and when I grew it from no money, no clients, no idea what I was doing to a very successful bookkeeping business that I actually sold last year. So welcome again. And as you're joining me, let me know in the chat where you're joining me from. I'd love to hear where you join me from. And we usually have people from all over the world. So it's so exciting just to bring everyone together, bring our community together. And it's such an honor and a privilege for me to be able to bring this very important education to you. So I see Wendy from Lenox, Massachusetts. I guess I forgot what the MA is. Sorry. Barbara from Alabama, Terry from Indiana, Nancy from El Paso, Shannon from Mobile, Alabama. Let's see, Cindy from Northwest Montana, Tabitha from Rockland, California, Anthony from Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome. And what did I say? We always get people from all over the world. So thank you. I have no idea what time it is in Lagos, Nigeria right now, but thank you for joining us. Thelma from Gaston, North Carolina, Jan from Texas, a couple of fellow Texans, Tracy and Haley, and Vanessa. So lots of Texans right here in my neck of the woods. Elizabeth, also from Rockport, Texas. Welcome. Mary from Los Angeles. Stephanie is from the tiny, remote, beautiful San Juan Island, Washington State. Welcome. I'm going to have to look it up. Look up San Juan Island. Shar from Washington State. Amy traveling in her RV currently in Ohio. Welcome. VJ from Eastern Washington. So thank you. And as you're joining me again, just let me know in the chat where you're joining from, or if you're watching this recording on YouTube later, let me know in the comments where you're joining me from. And as everybody's is logging on to the webinar, I just wanted to let you know that I will be at the Scaling New Heights conference next week. It's being held in Orlando, Florida. It is one of the biggest accounting technology conferences. And I will be co-presenting with Jamie Troll, teaching accountants on how to use video to market their services. I'm super excited about that. And we will also be doing a workshop as part of that presentation. So I'm very excited about that too, because I've never done a workshop when I have taught at a conference, and I have always wanted to. So I'm super excited about that. And actually, my assistant, Jill Keel, who's with us today, will be there with me. So she and I get to meet in person because we haven't met in person before. So I expect that we're going to have a lot of fun. And if you're going to Scaling New Heights, please reach out to me through the conference app. I would love to meet you. Jill and I are planning to get lots of pictures with other people, with people who know me through social media, through my courses, through my webinars. So please reach out to me. I would love to meet you. Would love to spend some time with you. And I'm actually not. I may be attending a couple of sessions, so I will have a lot of free time. So if you want to just chat, I would be more than happy to do that. So as we look at the chat again, lots of you joining. Tia from Lodi, California. Cindy, she says, yay, me too. I'm not sure she's going to Scaling New Heights or she's just saying me too. She's from the same town or something. So let us know. Stephanie, looks like you're going to Scaling New Heights. Absolutely. Let's connect. And so many from Washington State, it looks like. So, Carlene. Oh, hello, Carlene. I look forward to seeing you at Scaling New Heights. I met her at the BKX conference last year. So very excited. Cindy is going to Scaling New Heights. Fantastic. And Rachel, will be there. So please reach out. I would love to meet all of you. And don't feel like you're bothering me or anything. I'm there for you. I'm there to meet you and to spend some time with you. So I would love to do that. Charla is from Tomball. Hello, Charla. Charla's in the house. She says, hello. And she's, down the road from me here in the Houston area. So welcome. So, well, let's get started with our webinar. So again, the topic for our webinar today is pricing lessons for bookkeepers from panic to profit. So let me just get my presentation in front of me. And I see you, Veronica, from Brownsville, Texas. I always have an eye for all the Texas people. And of course, anybody who shares my name, because we don't see a lot of Veronica. So welcome, Veronica. All right. So again, pricing lessons for bookkeepers from panic to profit, and you will start seeing more and more of my presentations. I've decided I'm going to start giving a lot more value in my presentations, in my YouTube videos, just because I think we need this information in our industry, and I'm excited to bring it to you. Just in case you don't know who I am, or maybe you found me through social media, signed up for this webinar. My name is Veronica Wasek. I am the unstoppable introvert. I founded 5-Minute Bookkeeping and 5MB Academy. Through 5-Minute Bookkeeping, you'll find my YouTube channel, my Facebook community, website, all of the content that I put out. And then under 5MB Academy are all of our free and paid online courses that I will tell you more about later. So you can find me on social media at 5-Minute Bookkeeping. So just some administrative announcements. This presentation is subject to copyright, so please don't record it and share it on YouTube or social media. We do have handouts for today's presentation. You should be seeing those in your webinar, in a tab on your webinar window. We will be emailing all the handouts and recordings to everyone who registered for the webinar. So if you have to leave early, no worries. All of that will be emailed to you. Please use the chat to talk amongst yourselves or answer a question when I ask a question of you, or if you have any comments about the webinar, go ahead and do that. Jill Keel, my assistant, will be with us, so she will be monitoring the chat and sharing links and maybe sharing information as I'm going through the webinar. But if you have questions for me, please put them in the Q&A tab. That is where I will go and look to answer your questions at the end of our presentation. So we're all here to talk about pricing. And in the past, pricing to me equaled anxiety and lots of anxiety. And I have been there. Like I said, let me know in the chat. Does pricing, the thought of pricing or talking about pricing, does it make you anxious? Does it make you scared? And again, it did me. And I mean, there's so many factors, and we will talk about them as to why that was happening. But I mean, I've been there overthinking my pricing, afraid to talk to a prospective client about pricing, telling them that, oh, well, I'll get back to you with a proposal because I was too scared to even give them a price. And then it would take me like 2-3 weeks before I even got back to them. And that whole time, I'm just so stressed out. And I spent hours, like 12 hours one time, building a pricing spreadsheet. And I kept adding more things and more things and more things. And ultimately, I didn't even use the spreadsheet. And I just thought there should be this formula for pricing that I didn't know it. There must be something about pricing that I do not know, that everybody else knows what they're doing, but I don't. And really, it created a lot of anxiety. And let me just check the chat. Okay. Carlene says pricing does not scare me, but I want to make sure I'm charging enough. Carolyn says, yes, it makes me anxious. So, yes, lots of anxiety when it comes to pricing. So what are we talking about today? We will cover emotions, how to talk about pricing, and we will answer the question, how much should you charge? So we have a lot of good content here. And this is all built around the lessons that I learned about pricing, to where I went from this panic of like, oh my gosh, I have to come up with a price and tell somebody how much it is and hope that they will sign up for my services. I went from that to confident pricing. So let's start with the emotions behind pricing. I used to think that everyone knew how to price except for me. I used to think that everybody had it together, and there, like I said, that there was something I was missing and I just didn't know about it. They all seemed very confident in their pricing. I was very embarrassed to ask for help. I feared that people in the accounting industry would think that I was dumb, or like, how does she not know about pricing? And actually, we're all struggling. Everyone has struggled with pricing. We have a fear of rejection. So there's a lot of fear involved with pricing because we think that, okay, I desperately need this client. And so if I price them wrong, then I'm not going to win them as a client, or I may win them as a client, but I didn't charge enough. So it's a fear of rejection, fear of to be seen as greedy, that we're concerned about, can I give a fair price? There's a lot of you asking, well, what would be a fair price, and not seem greedy? There's fear of not being good enough. Sometimes that, well, I'm going to charge less because I don't know enough. And then we keep lowering our pricing. And ultimately, we tie our personal worth to our prices. And so ultimately, these fears pop up. Am I charging too much? Am I undercharging? And are others charging more than me? I think these are like the biggest fears that we have. Either I'm not charging enough, maybe I'm charging somebody too much, I'm greedy, or are others pricing more than me? And it, again, the emotion around that is our self-worth, that we tie that pricing around our self-worth, which doesn't make a lot of sense ultimately, but that, we're just wired that way. And I think that's why I was so embarrassed to even ask about how others were pricing, because of that, again, tying it back to, they're going to think I don't know anything, that self-worth. But that leads to getting stuck, because then we avoid pricing. We feel guilt, resentment of like, oh, I have to do this again. I hate this. Overthinking it. Like I said, hours and hours building a spreadsheet that I never used. Then you end up not raising your prices, not raising your rates. Then you start doing work for free in many cases, just because that, just even talking about pricing is so stressful. And then we end up with cheap clients, because then we feel like, well, maybe I just need to go and be, give this reasonable pricing. And then you end up like lowering and lowering. And it's just this vicious cycle, because now you're not getting paid enough. And then it starts again with avoidance and guilt, resentment. And then we just keep repeating the cycle. So one of the biggest lessons, and I would say the most important lesson that I learned about pricing, is that I had to stop projecting my attitudes about money to my clients. So again, stop projecting your attitudes about money to your clients. I'm a person that I like a bargain. Okay, I want to buy something that's cheap. That's my thing. And I kept thinking that every client who came to me wanted the same thing. They must want like the cheapest price. They want a bargain. And I realized that I couldn't project those attitudes to my clients, because they're different. They have a completely different experience. You may be concerned that you're overcharging, and again, projecting those attitudes to your client or your potential client. You you might, there's this money shame, and there's a whole conversation we could have about money shame, but there are people who have money shame and again, project those attitudes about money to their clients. And so how did I stop projecting that attitude about money? I had to then come up with who is an ideal client for me and how much can that ideal client afford? And that changed over time. Initially, I think I would have been happy to get $150 a month for bookkeeping from a client. And that's how I started, because I thought, well, okay, what's the lowest I could charge and still make some money? And so I thought, okay, $150 a month. But by the time that I sold my bookkeeping business, my minimum price was $1,000, $1,200 in that range. And our average client was started at about $1,500 a month. And so there was a lot of work I had to do in between to narrow down who that ideal client was. But the main thing to start with is to figure out who is that ideal client. And we'll talk more about other things that you will do here in a moment. So more lessons learned. Stop overthinking. And I needed to simplify my pricing process, and I'll talk more about that. But because I was, again, doing all sorts of things to come up with pricing. Don't worry about others. Okay. Don't worry about what others are doing, because I guarantee you that there are others who are charging more than you, and there are others who are charging less than you. So you cannot compare yourself, because again, that ties back to self-worth. And we need to take that out of the equation. So yes, there are other, if I was charging $1,500 a month, there are people who are starting clients at $2,500 a month. If you're charging $150 a month, there's probably somebody charging $500 a month, or even $100 a month, $75 a month. So it's really about simplifying the process and just coming up with a process, a system that works for you that is a lot simpler. More lessons learned. To target and to have an average rate and target what that average rate is. So aim for an average hourly rate for each client. And I will give you an example in a moment. Monitor. So then once you figure out so let's say that I want to average $100 an hour overall for all of my clients. First of all, we need to start tracking time to be able to do that, to have a method for tracking your time, for monitoring then every client every month, looking at what your average was and what was your average hourly amount per client, and then overall. And then once you monitor that, then you need to, if you need to, raise your prices as needed to then meet your target average hourly rate. So let's do an example. So let's say that I want to average $100 per hour, and that I have 3 clients. Okay, and their average hourly rates per month are, for client A, $85, for client B, $125, and for client C, $50. So our overall client average per hour is $86.67 per hour. Well, so what can I do to raise that average? Well, first of all, I can raise client C's pricing because they're only at $50 an hour. So I could raise their pricing. I can raise my pricing on future clients, which actually that's what I found that the easiest is just raise the price on the next client. And in fact, sometimes, let's say on a cleanup that maybe we didn't average what we were expecting to average, then we looked at why did we spend more time on this cleanup than we should have? And can we be more efficient? Can we streamline? Maybe we need to charge more for cleanups. Maybe I underpriced the cleanup. And so we need to, again, be monitoring those averages and seeing why Like, why is client C at $50 an hour when I thought they were going to be at $80 an hour? We're spending more time. Why? Maybe again, we need to see what's taking you longer. And again, if it's taking you longer, if it's taking more effort, which is what I don't like to tell clients, it's taking us longer to do something. I like to say it's taking more effort or there's more complexity. Then we need to increase that client. And another option is to let go of client C after you find higher paying clients, which is another strategy that I used. I knew that, okay, I took client C many years ago. I don't think they're going to pay me any more money because they're maxed out, but I can go find a client and charge more money to the next client. And then over time, as I then get better paying clients, I can let go of the lower paying clients if they're not willing to pay more. All right. Now, sometimes we have these potential clients who come to us that maybe we don't know how much to charge. We're not sure. Are we going to charge enough? Maybe we know that we might be underpricing. There's that risk of, could I be underpricing this client? And here's where we need to ask ourselves about opportunities. Perhaps there's an opportunity. If I take this type of client maybe at a lower price, is there an opportunity that I can turn around and make it more profitable when I get another client like them? So for example, what new skills can I learn? So let's say that an e-commerce client comes to you and maybe e-commerce isn't necessarily your thing, but hey, could I learn e-commerce and now could I take on e-commerce clients, build a niche around e-commerce and charge a lot more money because now I'm more specialized? That's a possibility. And that's what happened to me actually. And second, could it lead to a specialization? So if I take this client and I learn all these new skills, could it lead to a specialization in this area? Could it lead to referrals from this client? So again, sometimes we might take a client at a lower price, but we have to assess the opportunities and look at the upside of, okay, if I take this client, I may actually become a lot more profitable because I'll be able to take on better clients. Having said that, sometimes clients come to us that they're not really wanting to pay a whole lot and they're not a right fit. And in those cases, I would say it's better to walk away. So again, going back to what I said before, you need to know who is an ideal client in order to then focus on those ideal clients. The other tips, include wording in your engagement letter to assess pricing on a quarterly basis. I know many of you don't even get price increases at all. And then you're scared to talk to your client about increasing their pricing. You need to have wording in your engagement letter. And you most definitely need to have an engagement letter with your client. And then have that wording where you assess pricing on a quarterly basis. And you need to include wording on your engagement letter that you will raise pricing every year as well. And so at a very minimum, you will be increasing your pricing every year. And then you reserve the right to reassess pricing on a quarterly basis. Let me look at the chat. Yeah, and Cindy says, I struggle with this projecting my attitude about money. Yes, and a lot of us actually, I did some research a few years ago about attitudes about money, that a lot of our attitudes about money were really built when we were children and how we were raised to think about money. Some of us were raised in families that didn't have a lot of money. And so then we're kind of really tight with our money, and it's hard for us to make investments in our business or to even deal with those potential clients that, they don't have the same view about money as we do. Right, next. So I want you to ask yourself, so little homework. So you have the handout and it'll be, you can download it and it will also be emailed to you. So little homework for later. I want you to ask yourself, what feelings come up for you when you think about quoting your services? And where do those feelings come from? Okay. Number 2, and I'm going to read this in the first person. That way it'll be easier for me to read it. Do I believe clients will say yes to my pricing, or do I expect rejection? And if so, why? Am I tying my self-worth to what I charge, and how is that affecting my business? And number 4, do I worry more about being affordable or about being fairly paid for the value I provide? So again, these are questions that will help you sort through your feelings and emotions around money and how you might be projecting that onto your prospective clients. And I would like to add also that some of you have problems finding clients or landing a client because the prospective client can sense that anxiety that you have around pricing. And it's anxiety, sometimes it's desperation. I have been there, guys. We desperately need a client, but when we're projecting all those emotions onto someone, they can sense that, and then it makes them uncomfortable. So work through these questions. I think it's really important to identify those emotions, where they're coming from. And now we're going to talk about how to talk about pricing, to then see how do we begin to let go of those emotions and have those confident conversations. So how to talk about pricing. First of all, so we talked about emotion and all those emotions we have behind the pricing. But my number one piece of advice is you must take out all emotion from your pricing conversations. Okay, so we must remove the emotion and understand that we're just having a conversation with a prospective client. I did a webinar last month on selling, and we talked about the fact that when you're having that sales conversation with a prospective client, you're just determining whether you're a good fit for working together. Okay, so we can't just go in there with the desperation that I've got to have a client, because they will sense that. And so really it's about taking out the emotion. I mean, obviously we're not going to be like, this emotionless person, but we want to be, a nice person, enthusiastic, positive. But in terms of the fears, the anxieties, all those emotions need to be removed, because we're just having a conversation with a fellow business person. And we need to let go of the pressure to land a client, because again, that prospective client can sense the desperation, the pressure, and they may not even realize that's what they're sensing. But you're putting out that emotion, and they can pick up on it. So how do we do that? How do we then talk about money in a way that is more comfortable for all of us? First of all, we want to eliminate anything that refers to a rate or a fee. We want to eliminate those words, okay? Because when we think of a fee, like, a lawyer's fee or my hourly rate, there's different connotations for those words that we want to eliminate those emotions from us, and also the emotions that your prospective client may have. So we want to use the word price or pricing, okay? The price for the service is. The pricing is. So it's not my fee and it's not my, okay, it's the price for the service, the pricing. There's no emotion around talking about the price, at least for me. Once I made that switch, it was like night and day, because I could just, the price for this is XYZ. The pricing for this cleanup is $5,000. And believe me, sometimes I've said the pricing for this cleanup is $20,000, and I was scared to say 20,000, but it's like, that's what the price is. So, if you're going to make any change today, please start with that. Eliminate saying fees or rates and say the price. And also practice in front of the mirror. Practice. Just say it out loud. The price for the service is. The pricing is. And throw some big numbers in there so you get used to saying that. Because again, it's that emotion around pricing that we think, no one's going to pay $5,000 because that's so much money. Well, that's a lot of money to you. It may not be a lot of money to your prospective client. So we need to see it and say it. Okay, so this first sentence here, the price for the cleanup is. Notice that, so let's say that you are emailing this to a client, and notice that I put no commas, okay? Remove all the commas from your amounts when you are typing or sending an email or a proposal or an engagement letter to your client. So anywhere that your client is going to see an amount, remove the commas. Visually, that makes the amount seem smaller because every time we add a comma, like our brain is programmed to then see it as a bigger amount. So I removed all of the commas from my amounts. By the way, I'm giving credit to Mark Wickersham, who I learned this from. He is the master of pricing. If you want to look him up, he's on YouTube and Facebook, and teaches pricing at a much deeper level. So just wanted to give credit where credit is due. So he said, take out the commas from the amounts. So the way you see a price or the way the prospective client sees the price, when we want to remove the comma or commas, and then how you say it. Okay. So let's say that the price or the pricing for the cleanup is, I normally just say 5,000 or 1,000 or 2,000 or 500. I just say the number. I don't say dollars or pounds or whatever. I just give them the amount. Because again, it kind of, in the way that you're saying it, takes away the anxiety, just to say 5,000. And then the way the client hears it also, there's something about how the brain hears dollars or whatever currency that you use is different from if you just give them the amount, or like 2,500 or 3,500. Just say it and just let it just come out of you. Like, again, no anxiety, no fear, just say it. So you have to practice of saying this so that it becomes more comfortable for you to say it. And then a lot of you are, you're asked by a prospective client, how much do you charge for? And in last month's webinar, we talked about selling. And again, I said that when somebody leads with a conversation about how much something is, they're probably very price sensitive, but we need to have a good answer for them when they're asking, how much do you charge? And in many cases, we might get an email or a message from a prospective client. And so they're asking, how much do you charge? So here's what you can say. Thanks for asking. I customize my pricing based on the specific needs and complexity of each client's books. The first step is to do a paid diagnostic review so I can assess the scope of work and provide an accurate quote. Would you like me to tell you more about how that works? So in this case, I said diagnostic review. The first step may be that you need to do a discovery call before you even talk about a diagnostic review, but you get the gist of it, that the answer is generally you customize your pricing based on the specific needs and complexity of each client's books, and then you tell them what the next step is. Here's another question we might be asked. What's your rate or what's your hourly rate? Your answer is, I don't charge by the hour. I offer fixed pricing based on the work and complexity for each client. To give you accurate pricing, I start with a paid diagnostic review to assess your books and determine what services are the best fit for you. So again, in this case, you would also give them what your next step is, which again could be a discovery call, etc. But the gist of it is, I don't charge by the hour. I offer fixed pricing based on the work and complexity for each client. I wanted to share a testimonial from, I think this might have been even somebody who was on YouTube watching one of my videos that I did on the diagnostic review and talking about pricing and selling cleanups. So this person said, I was nervous about how I would convey the pricing to my client. I expected they would object to the pricing. So notice the emotion. I expected they would object to the pricing. And so going back to the testimonial, and I had all manner of justifications planned out to counter their objections. I was even going to recommend things they could do to lower the cost. Then after I thought about all that for a while, I just said, screw it. Just tell them what it's going to cost and don't apologize for it. Be a professional. So when I finally talked to the customer, all I said was, it's going to be X dollars to do the cleanup and Y dollars per month after that. And you know what they said? They simply said, okay. So notice here how there's the emotion already being projected onto that prospective client. This person thought that, okay, the prospective client is going to object to the pricing. Okay, so it's way too much. They're going to object. And then they came up with justifications of, okay, well, then here are all the reasons why this is my price. And I've got to fight their objections. And then even recommend that they could do things at a lower cost. Okay. So again, projecting all these things onto that client. And she just told them the price is for the cleanup. The pricing for the cleanup is, the pricing for the monthly service is X. And the client just said, okay. And actually, when they say okay, that means you probably didn't charge enough because they did object to your pricing. But notice how this person decided, let's just let go of the emotion and just give this client the pricing for what it is. And the client, she signed on the client. So that's fantastic. So again, let go of the stress, the anxiety. All right. So a couple of things to ask yourself for later. Am I clear and direct when I talk about my prices, or do I use vague language to avoid discomfort? I would say I didn't even use vague language because I just avoided the conversation altogether and just would tell them, like, I'll get back to you with a proposal in a few days, which sometimes became a few weeks. Just so unproductive. So are you clear and direct? And I would say start using some of the strategies that I talked about earlier. Second question, what would change in my business if I treated pricing conversations as normal, professional, and necessary? I think that's an amazing question. Just because of, what if pricing conversations were just normal, professional, and necessary? And if you notice how when you go, let's say that you had to hire an attorney and the attorney just tells you what their pricing is, might be an hourly rate, might be a fixed rate. They're not sitting there, worried about whether you will pay them that or whether you think it's too much. They just tell you what their pricing is. When you go and purchase a product, or let's say you're buying furniture, the pricing is listed. You know how much you're going to pay, and they're not worried about, are you going to pay or not? Or do you think it's too expensive? There's a whole psychology around that as far as value pricing, and I've alluded to knowing who your ideal client is, and a lot of those factors affect pricing as well. But the main takeaway here is, what if pricing conversations were normal, professional, and necessary? And what if you took out all the emotion, all the negative emotion from those pricing conversations? You look at the chat. Tabitha was talking about scope creep, recently asked to do a projection, and I said yes, as opposed to, would you like a quote for that service? That's great. A quote also, I don't like the word quote. I always said, would you like pricing? Would you like me to give you pricing for that service? Let's see. Dora says, this is amazing advice. I feel confident just thinking about saying the price that way. And then Elizabeth says, the prospect might think it's a small cleanup and not realize how much cleanup is really needed. And absolutely. All right. So now we're going to go to the third section of our webinar, which I'm sure you're all excited about. How much should you charge? Okay. So let's dive right in. First of all, you cannot price what you haven't seen, or you cannot price in the dark. Okay. So we cannot give pricing to clients if we have not seen their books. I firmly believe that. There are some of you that give pricing to clients without ever seeing anything, or you're asking the client questions about what they're doing. And of course, the client always underestimates what they have. Like, I just have a couple of bank accounts. And then, well, no, they have 20. Okay. And I've seen that, by the way. Or they have a giant commingling mess, you cannot give pricing to a client unless you see what they have. So what do? We need to do a paid bookkeeping needs analysis. If they don't have any books, you need to analyze and see what they have, and then be able to give them pricing. You need to do a paid diagnostic review, which I've talked a lot about and teach on paid diagnostic reviews. And at a very minimum, you could even just do a free SMART review, which is just a quick 15-minute review of their QuickBooks. If you would like to sign up for the free SMART review, I'm going to ask Jill to put the link for you to sign up for that, so you can learn more about that. But diagnosis first. That is very important. Just like a doctor has to diagnose you before they prescribe treatment, before they do a surgery, or whatever. Even, when you take your car in to be serviced, they do a diagnostic. So diagnosis first. Then you need to qualify your prospective client. I've talked a lot about this in the past. To qualify that prospective client, to even know, are they in the ballpark of what you charge? So for example, when I'm talking to a client about either a cleanup or monthly bookkeeping services, at some point during that conversation, I'm going to say, just to give you an idea of what to expect, for a company your size, the price for a cleanup, for example, is typically, let's say, $2,500 to $5,000. Okay. So we need to give that client some idea of where we fall in, or where they might fall in that pricing, just to not waste each other's time. So that's really important to add that to your sales conversations with clients. And now let's talk about methods for pricing. So, and actually the method I prefer for pricing, fixed pricing. Okay. I prefer to do fixed pricing because you focus on desired outcomes and not the number of hours that you spend working on a client's project, and it lowers the risk to the client. When you're charging by the hour, you risk not getting paid by that client. And in fact, if you were to ask me, how much money have you lost, Veronica, from not getting paid by clients because you were charging hourly? Well, the answer would be $20,000. I just came across a video that I did a while back where I was talking about that. And I thought, oh, that hurts. But all that happened because I was not using engagement letters and because I was invoicing by the hour and did all this work that people didn't pay me for. So when you do fixed pricing, not only does the client know how much you're going to charge, but then you can charge in advance or at least charge for a retainer, charge by the week or however you're going to do that, and make sure that you're getting paid by that client as you're doing the work. So fixed pricing is the way to go. Next, you need to decide on an hourly or average hourly rate that you would like to earn. I'm going to give you some guidelines, and honestly, you can use this if it makes you feel better, but there is no hard and fast rule for how we need to price. And I think as numbers people, we would like to be given like, here's your rate sheet. Here's the rate sheet that we all use in the industry, but it doesn't work that way. So I'm going to give you some average hourly rates that you, again, use it if it helps you. So if, let's say you're starting out as a bookkeeper, if I were starting out now, I would probably charge $50 to $100 an hour. Let's say you're an intermediate bookkeeper. Maybe you've been in business already for a couple of years. You could charge $100 to $150 an hour, and these are US dollars. Okay. Obviously, if you're in another country, you're going to have to come up with something else. And let's say that you are a more advanced bookkeeper. Maybe you have a niche. Then it would be $150 an hour plus. In my bookkeeping firm, with an e-commerce niche, we were targeting $200 an hour for working with monthly clients, and actually probably $250 an hour plus for cleanups. So all that comes from a lot of experience, systems, processes, technical expertise, proven solutions, all of that can help you then start charging more money. But decide on what that average hourly rate is first, okay? Because it goes back to when I was talking about, then we can analyze the average hourly rate per month for each client to see if they fall within the average hourly rate that we would like to make. Another thing that you need to decide on is your minimum fixed price. So you need to know what is your minimum, what is the minimum you're going to charge for monthly clients, for cleanups, and for setups. So for example, for monthly clients, if you're starting out as a bookkeeper, I probably wouldn't do any bookkeeping under $300 because that's what the QuickBooks Live service charges. They might be charging more by now, but I wouldn't go below that. For an intermediate bookkeeper, probably $500, and then if you're advanced, $1,000 plus. For cleanups, also you should have a minimum price for a cleanup. For my bookkeeping firm, it was $2,500, and honestly, if we were cleaning up a full year, the fee would, or the price wouldn't be less than $5,000 for a year, and it usually was more closer to $10,000. And then for, let's say you're setting up QuickBooks from scratch, $750 plus. Okay. I used to think that, I'll charge for $250 for a setup, but there's a lot of things involved in doing this work. Same with cleanups, same with monthly services. And so we need to have to know what that monthly minimum is. What is the minimum for cleanups? What is the minimum for setup? And then what is the minimum for any other work that you're doing? Now let's talk about how do we go about calculating our fixed price. So there are two ways in which you can do that. One is volume and the other is revenues. if you're using volume as a way for calculating your fixed price, here are some ways in which you can do that. One is the number of transactions that your client has per month. So you can look at their bank statements, credit card statements, kind of get a feel for volume of transactions, maybe number of bank accounts, etc. That is something I used to do, but honestly, like I got so tired of counting transactions, okay, because it just takes too long. It worked for a time, but I outgrew it. I got tired of counting transactions. Another way, which I actually learned this from Michelle Long many years ago, she estimated 1 minute per transaction. And I think every time that I calculated pricing that way, it was very much in the ballpark. Okay, so I think it still works. But again, we have to calculate number of transactions. It gets tedious. Another way is maybe number of bank accounts and number of credit card accounts. This isn't something that I did, but some people do. Like they'll say, okay, yeah, five bank accounts at let's say $200 each. That's your monthly price. Notice again, there's no formula. Like, okay, this is the way we all have to do it. I would say it's find what works for you. Understanding that you may have to then over time evolve into something else just because, like I said, sometimes it just gets tedious of dealing with transactions. The other method that you can use for calculating your monthly fixed pricing is revenues and using a percentage of annual revenues. This is actually what I ended up using because it is the simplest way to price. So let's go through some examples. So let's talk about using transaction volume to calculate pricing. So let's say that we have 250 transactions per month and that we're going to charge $1 to $2 per transaction. So we're just going to take the number of transactions times, let's just say $1. So 250 transactions per month times $1 each is 250 per month. If it were $2, it would be $500 a month. Okay. Let's say that we were going to go with the 1 minute per transaction approach. So we would take 1 minute times 250 transactions. That equals 250 divided by 60 minutes, which then gives me 4.167 hours per month. And then I'm going to multiply that times the hourly rate that I would like to make. And that would give me, in this case, $313. I would probably charge either $300 or $325 a month. So again, we don't have this formula that everybody should be using. Maybe you look at this and say, wow, I love this, $1, $2 per transaction. That's easy. I can do that. Great. Use that. Or the minute per transaction times, figuring out then times your whatever hourly rate you want to make. Fantastic. Use that. And again, remember, somebody's going to be charging more than you and somebody's going to be charging less than you just because that's the way it is. Now let's look at an example of percentage of revenues. So in this example, what I have used is charging 1% to 3% of annual revenues for monthly bookkeeping services. And again, this is what worked for me because after working with so many clients, I had a pretty good idea where they should be in terms of pricing. And honestly, by the time I had sold my bookkeeping firm, I think I just pulled numbers out of the air because I just already knew kind of, okay, this client is going to fall in this price range, just because I knew what the revenues were, I knew what their needs were. And I would love it for you to get to the point of you're just pulling pricing out of nowhere, because that's kind of how I got in the end, just because I was so comfortable with pricing. But in this particular case, let's say that we have $300,000 in annual revenues. We're going to use 2% of revenues, which is $6,000. We're going to take $6,000 divided by 12 months, which is 500. I'm sorry, I'm trying to sneeze. Excuse me. Okay, so we're going to, let's say, take 6,000 divided by 12 months, gives us 500 a month. So then you could charge for that client 500 a month. And again, this is what really started working for me and took all the pressure off. And that's what I continue to use till I just got so comfortable with pricing that I didn't even need that formula anymore. All right, lessons learned. Do a paid diagnostic review for cleanup clients. So again, talking about a pricing in the dark or pricing for something you've never seen before, you need to do those paid diagnostic reviews, paid analysis before you price a client. Stop overthinking your pricing. Okay, I have been there. I wanted these formulas. I wanted something to like give me a number. But it led to too much overthinking. Use a quick and simple method to price. So it could be percentage of revenues, could be transactions, could be 1 minute per transaction, and always get paid in advance because we can way overthink the pricing, can go through all of this stress and then not get paid in advance. And then not only now we wasted all that time overthinking our pricing, but the client didn't even pay us, which is even worse. So always get paid in advance. All right. I'd like to share some resources with you. So go to my YouTube channel for more videos. There's all kinds of videos on QuickBooks, pricing, selling, diagnostic reviews, and cleanup. That's all on my YouTube channel at 5mbvideo.com. You can go to my academy at 5mbacademy.com to learn more about my free courses and paid courses. And then if you haven't signed up for my mailing list, please go ahead and do that. You have the QR code as well as the link to do that as well. And speaking of 5MB Academy, just wanted to tell you really quick about it. I built this online academy a few years ago because I was so tired of clients telling me that, oh, my previous bookkeeper messed up my books, or my previous bookkeeper didn't know how to do something. And rather than just being mad about like, okay, do bookkeepers really not know what they're doing? Or I decided to turn it into a positive and to be part of the people who are now empowering bookkeepers to be better bookkeepers, to have confidence, to be profitable, and to build the bookkeeping business and life of their dreams. So if you have been struggling with pricing, is this you? Does the thought of pricing make you want to run away like it did me? Do you want to stop overthinking how much to charge for monthly bookkeeping services? And are you sick of wondering what to say when someone pushes back on your rates, or worse, they ghost you after a great conversation? So if that is you and you're tired of all of that stress, and again, I have been there. And like I said, I was too afraid to ask anybody about how to price. And so I just had these years of shame of like, I must be the only one who doesn't know how to price. But I wasn't. Most everybody here struggles with pricing. So if that is you, then here's what I recommend. From 5MB Academy, we have a template and a system called Simple Pricing System. And the system will empower you to release your pricing worries so that you can finally win that ideal client that you deserve. So I show you how to do your monthly pricing using the percentage of revenue calculations, and then you get a calculator. So I did build a calculator. It's just not so involved as the crazy ones that I had before. But it's just a pricing calculator template that you can use. You have lifetime access to it. And in fact, I will probably be updating this to also include cleanup pricing and additional pricing so that it'll all live under one umbrella. So that is the Simple Pricing System. Jill should be sharing that link with you in the chat. And the other is the Bookkeeper Sales Script Vault, which I launched last month. So this is a brand new resource on 5MB Academy. And these are done for you scripts and sales conversation toolkits for bookkeepers so that you can talk to clients with confidence and not feel salesy. So it has all of my selling strategies, discovery call essentials, discovery call scripts, confident conversation scripts, proposal delivery scripts, handling objections, following up with clients via email. So you get the email templates, and you also get a prospect personality playbook. That was a mouthful. And you also get lifetime access to that. So if you would like to learn more about those courses, Jill should be sharing the link. And I have a discount code to share with you on those two courses. So we are running a sale between now and next week. Use coupon code 5MB June 25 for a 15% discount, and the sale ends on Tuesday, June 24th. So if you would like to move forward and to learn more about these very valuable resources, and then I've given you the QR codes as well, so you can take a look at those. So I'll leave that up for just a moment while I transition to our Q&A. And, we are doing great on time. So I'm going to answer questions for the next 15 minutes, and we will go from there. Get to the top. So I'll leave that one screen up for a little bit so you guys can take a look while I answer some questions. So question from Thomas: how can referral pricing be used to gain more clients, especially when starting out? Can you clarify for me what you mean by referral pricing, Thomas? I'm not familiar with what you mean by that. Stephanie says, Wickersham Training says never give a price range because it says a low price anchor in their mind, and they want to know why they didn't get the lower price. Yes, I would agree that. Okay, so what Stephanie's saying is that I mentioned that I use a ballpark figure to give clients pricing. And I would say that came from, as I said, my confidence in pricing evolved. And so I got to the point, because I was working with ideal clients, niche clients. I mean, I pretty much knew exactly how to price them, that I could very confidently give a ballpark figure, knowing that their pricing would be in that ballpark figure. Now, Mark Wickersham is more advanced and teaches other things. So thank you, Stephanie. I'm going to stick to what works for me. And that has worked for me to give clients a ballpark figure. But I hear you and understand that in some cases that could be a negative if then that prospective client kind of latches on to the lower price. I would say that the lower price in that range was always about what I wanted to charge the client anyway. Wendy is asking, did you ever use pricing based on transactions or a flat rate? I believe I already answered that we covered. I did not. I used transactions. I used more in the beginning was the 1 minute per transaction model. But then it evolved into percentage of revenues. And okay, I'm going to stop sharing that screen. Let me go back to Beth. What percentage do you suggest for increasing your pricing every year? It used to be 5%. And I would say that's still probably reasonable. I mean, obviously we've had a lot of inflation, but I would say 5 to 10%, generally 5% for each client, just if nothing changed. Okay, so if nothing changed, we did a 5% increase. But if they had more transactions, more complexity, I've had a client where I completely doubled their fee from 1 year to the next, just because they had grown so much. Thomas is asking, is it advisable to not include pricing information on your website? I'm a believer in not including pricing on your website. I have had some starting prices just to filter out clients who don't qualify would qualify as an ideal client. But I don't like or prefer not to have like, here's my package and my price for that package. Because as was said before, I believe it was Stephanie that's saying, then your prospective client kind of latches on to that. Well, you said it was starting at $200 a month and now you're charging me $1,200. And so they kind of latch on to those lower prices. Karen is asking, my question is, do you charge a client to look at their books before giving a monthly price or not? I would not. If their books were completely clean, Karen, I would not, but rarely are their books completely clean. And so if a client came to me and said, like, I've been working with a bookkeeper, they've been doing a great job, but they're retiring and I need someone else to take over my bookkeeping, then I would say, well, I'll take a quick look at your books. I would probably just do like a smart review, which is just a 15-minute review. So I would tell the client, I will do a quick review of your books and give you pricing for monthly services. But if I see that any cleanup is needed, then I will need to do a paid diagnostic review. Lucinda is asking, when giving a range for a company of your size, how do you know what their size of their company is? I go by revenues, and I get that from the questionnaire that prospective clients fill out before the discovery call. Let's see. Lucinda, why ask for company financials? I don't do that in the sales process. I'm not sure if I said that otherwise. But I don't normally review their financials during the discovery call process. Sarah is asking for monthly services. What are you including in that package? If you can because it's going to take me a long time to talk about that. Take a look. I believe I have sample service packages in the free virtual bookkeepers toolbox. That will show you what is included in each of those packages. So Jill, if you can share that link to the virtual bookkeepers toolbox on 5MB Academy, then you can get it from there. Dora is asking, let's see, where am I? What about a prospect who is just starting out in business and has no annual revenue yet or a heap of transactions? I would probably, I never worked with business owners who were just starting out and didn't have any revenues. And honestly, they rarely come to you when they haven't started yet. Okay. So I would probably, if they did come to me for that, I would probably get them on some sort of QuickBooks setup package. And then let them be in business for maybe 3 months before I would price monthly services. But again, you can't price what you can't see. Rhonda, would you recommend just a fixed price for the diagnostic? What are your thoughts on crediting the fee toward the cleanup? So yes, only fixed pricing for diagnostics. I've done several webinars and YouTube videos on that. In fact, I just released a YouTube video on how to price the diagnostic review with recommended pricing. So look for that in my YouTube channel at 5 Minute Bookkeeping. And then in terms of crediting the fee back toward the cleanup, I never did, but if that works for you, then go ahead. I think it works either way. Raphael is asking, in the United States, don't you charge extra for preparing the closing and annual taxes? So Raphael, in the United States, we don't, in other countries, I think they have like this, the annual accounts or, so first of all, we don't have that in the United States. In terms of annual taxes, we have many different taxes. So if you're referring to federal income taxes, that would be done by a tax preparer or a certified public accountant. Bookkeepers don't necessarily prepare income tax returns for clients unless they have additional training and some certifications to do that. Let's see. Stephanie's asking, what changed for you to become comfortable with discussing pricing? And also, how long ago did you sell your bookkeeping business? So I sold my bookkeeping business this last December. So it's been recent. So what changed for me to become comfortable with discussing pricing, I think, is when I realized that I just need to let go of the fear and the pressure, simplify, like be able to give pricing a lot quicker to prospective clients. That took away that, because, if I was sitting there for a week, anxious about, will I get the client? Will I not get the client? Am I charging enough? I'm not charging enough. That's just very counterproductive, and it really drains your energies, drains for me, my creativity, takes away your peace of mind. And so when I started to simplify my process to be able to give clients upfront pricing for diagnostic reviews, or to give that client that ballpark figure for here's what a client your size would pay, it just took away that pressure that I was feeling of like, I'm going to have to talk about pricing and I don't know how much to charge. That took away that fear. And let's see, Joel says, I'm a registered tax pro in, is that Canada or California? Let me know. Let me keep reading. I just got my first bookkeeping client. However, I will only be doing his books and not preparing his taxes. He needed a bookkeeper with tax knowledge. His revenue is $300,000. How would you structure the price of monthly bookkeeping services that will include tax expertise and tax consulting also? That's a great question, and I'm probably not the best one to answer that, just because I did not provide tax preparation services. And so you might want to talk about to talk to other tax professionals about how much they charge for those services. Honestly, I have no idea other than what my CPA charges me. Judith is asking, how do you convince clients to pay in advance if you have not started doing the work yet? Okay, so first of all, we do not convince clients, and never need to convince the client. That is just the way you do business. Like, you have to pay your doctor before you see a doctor. You have to pay for all kinds of services before you get those services. So there's nothing wrong with asking a client to pay in advance. A lot of that has to go back to what's called your positioning, how you position yourself in the market. Are you working with those ideal clients? Do you seem credible? Do you seem professional? So that's part of the know, like, and trust factor. Will they know you? Will they feel comfortable working with you? I don't ask, actually for diagnostic reviews, clients pay in advance. For cleanups, we would charge 50% upfront and 50% near completion of the cleanup. So there are ways to work with clients in which they still have that comfort level.